George Woodcock wrote a piece called The Tyranny of the Clock, which spoke about how industrial society, with the rise of industrial capitalism, turned time itself into a means of control. As opposed to the more fluid rhythm of nature which we were used to before, Woodcock writes, "The clock turns time from a process of nature into a commodity that can be measured and bought and sold like soap or sultanas." He spoke of it as a more potent symbol of the exploitation of labor. And he goes on to say, this new attitude to time, with the invention of the clock, with this new regularity of life, was imposed by the clock-owning masters on the unwilling poor. Back in the day, regular people didn't just have clocks and watches and things like that. If you go to work in the factories, who tells you when to wake up, when to get to work, and when it's time to go home are those you work for. And if your employer wanted you to work longer, guess what? They would just push the clock back and you would be none the wiser. And many are still imposed upon by the clock-owning masters today, because those who you work for control your time. I saw a powerful quote by Mahad Saeed where he said, "You know you're wealthy when your day is yours." In other words, you control your time. And it's like in other periods of history, in spite of how pretty things seem now, those of us that feel the claustrophobia within this treadmill, within this rat race of a system that we find ourselves in, as people who are landless, because I think we forget a lot of times that most of us are displaced peoples, landless, clueless, timeless, and those who feel it but don't have a way of articulating it and don't have a way out. They're scrambling. And we can be inclined to think someone who's obsessed with money is crazy, but no, what they want is to buy their freedom. And that's not an exaggeration, that's literally what it is. It's like drapetomania back in the day when a slave wanted to run away. They said they had a mental illness for not wanting to live in a system that was oppressive. To say most of your time is not yours is to say most of your life is not yours. And if your life is scarce, that means you are in survival. And if you're in survival, that means your cortisol is higher. And if your cortisol is higher, your body is mobilizing to defend against threat. And your mind is preoccupied with finding relief. Which is why Bertrand Russell said it's an evidence of how overworked we are, the fact that our heavens always seem to be places where nothing ever happens or changes. Now, what does this have to do with sex? The way we pleasure ourselves is rushed. The way we pleasure our partners is rushed. The idea of performance and efficiency is ironically performative and inefficient when human beings internalize programming that's meant for robots. One of the reasons sex therapy even exists, one of the reasons why Tantra is so powerful and relevant, is because we've never gotten a chance to really slow down and listen to and learn from our bodies. We treat orgasm like another measure of productivity, and it becomes the end, the goal, the accomplishment. The body gets forced and it gets rejected when it doesn't perform or conform to the rigid demands of our time, which has no regard for the fluidity of the body's rhythm. Between this scarcity of time and the timelessness of eternity is ritual. Within defined constraints of time, we enter a piece of eternity through ritual, contained within clear beginnings and endings. Within time that is ours, that we choose, we create a space safe enough for the nervous system to relax. A relaxed nervous system clears the path for arousal to meet us honestly and spontaneously, rather than through compulsion or force. And so the question is, when we are not under the tyranny of the clock, even for a moment, what does your mind and body desire in safety, when time is yours, when pleasure is not just a relief, but a journey and an end in itself? Perch.